Boy, I want to be with you all.
Giselle Bündchen wants to hang out with me and is throwing me smouldering looks. Rioting crowds want to rip off my clothes. And David Beckham chases me down the street in just his underwear. I am H&M. Two bright red initials that stand for Hennes and Mauritz. A small company born in Sweden in the 1940s, which has transformed itself over the years into a global giant. At its head, the Persson family, the wealthiest dynasty in Scandinavia. Their genius idea? That fashionable clothes don't have to be expensive. A t-shirt or a skirt for the same price as a cinema ticket. Something that isn't beyond your reach, made by H&M all year round. And the juggernaut steams ahead. Their profit in 2013? 1.92 billion euros, after tax. Welcome to the wonderful world of the planet's second largest clothes retailer. Because H&M's USP is that it can reconcile capitalism with morality, an ethical dream.
To take responsibility is a very important part in the total customer offering for us.
From Asia to Africa, passing through Europe, we have been investigating this company that claims to be a paragon of virtue over a 6-month period. We took a round-the-world trip to see the other side of H&M, and we discovered a reality that is very different. Totally disillusioned employees.
On a détourné ces lettres, hein. À un moment donné, c'était devenu haine et mensonge.
Factory workers in great danger. And cunning financial schemes to evade taxes.
H&M has never paid any income tax for the last 28 years in Bangladesh.
Not only in Bangladesh, but in all the countries where we have a sourcing market.
All guarded in a fierce culture of secrecy.
Take it down. Take it down and switch it off.
An investigation into the hidden face of a multinational that sells us happy globalization from the high street. We start our investigation that will delve deep into the world of H&M by following standard procedure. We contact their communications office and put in filming requests. We want to gain access to their offices, follow their employees, visit factories, take photos in their stores, and above all, secure a meeting with the top dog. An interview with Carl Johan Persson, the young CEO who seems very happy to parade in front of the media. The reply arrives a few days later. Our request is declined, politely but categorically. It was a waste of time and a big fat no to every single one of our requests. Despite these refusals, we pack our suitcases. Our journey into the world of H&M will start far away from its Swedish base, in Southeast Asia. Our destination? One of their main producer countries, Bangladesh. The second largest textile exporter in the world after China. It has been supplying H&M with millions of garments for around 30 years now. But it's not just a question of business. No. The group has decided to make itself the model of social responsibility. It is a promise that has been personally made by its CEO.
We want to contribute to improvements for the people working in the clothing industry in Bangladesh, and that's why since many years back we have invested a lot of resources to improve the Bangladeshi textile industry.
Behind the official speeches, what does this ethical paradise of H&M really look like? First introduce you to the Bangladeshi capital, Dhaka. A megalopolis, suffocating under one of the highest levels of pollution in the world. 15 million citizens, 44,000 of them per square kilometre, the highest population density on the planet. And above all, 40% of its inhabitants live below the poverty line, surviving on less than $1 per day. So we find ourselves here in the mecca of low-cost textiles. Local industry's biggest client? H&M, obviously. But they aren't the only ones. In fact, most of the large Western brands have production contracts here. It is 8 a.m, and everywhere you look, you see some of the 4 million workers on their way to the factories. Processions of garment workers in a line, just like in their workshops with their crumbling walls. Of the 500 factories that are officially listed here, 164 make clothes for H&M. But as journalists, it is impossible for us to enter the factories without the brand's authorization.
We have from a French buying house, a new French buying house. And
So we pretend to be professionals from the textile industry.
Some factories to work with.
The current legal minimum wage in the country's workshops is barely €50 a month. In this factory, they are very proud to show us the pretty children's jumpers that have been ordered by the Swedish brand. It is almost like a business card meant to reassure future clients like us.
Okay. Okay. Thank you again very much for your time.
We're going to find out another version of the facts from local trade unionists. One of them wants to show us the other side of H&M's Bangladeshi El Dorado. We see her for the first time in the middle of a meeting, Sultana. After 11 years behind a sewing machine, she has left the workshops to defend the rights of the workers.
Those she think that H&M, they are really interesting in improving labor condition.
আমার তো মনে হয় তাই H&M একটা মুখোশ পরে রয়েছে যে দেখাইতেছে অনেক কিছু করে কিন্তু করতেছে না কারণ বাংলাদেশের মতো এত সস্তা শ্রমিকদের কাছ থেকে পৃথিবীর কোনো রাষ্ট্রে নাই কা ঠিক আছে সবাইকে খোদা হাফেজ
As the afternoon comes to an end, we stay with her. One of her network of informers comes to alert her about serious problems with overtime at one of H&M's suppliers. First, we do a little discreet reconnaissance around the outside of the factory. On the entrance is the name AKH, the building's owners. We check on H&M's website in their list of approved suppliers. Under the heading Bangladesh are the brand's 164 manufacturers in the country. And on the 8th row, we find the AKH group.
AKH stands for a better tomorrow.
AKH, the company that fights for a better tomorrow, as it claims in its video advertisement. They are partners with numerous big European brands like H&M. Inside their workshops are 14,000 disciplined employees in nice, colourful uniforms, and they work shifts that are carefully controlled by state-of-the-art electronic time clocks.
Top management of AKH maintains a very good relation with its workforce and helps maintain a good working environment in which the workers can truly feel their workplace as their second home.
But it is in this factory that extremely intense production levels are demanded from the workers. However, in its ethical charter, H&M's promises are very clear. 6-day weeks of 48 hours work. With regards to overtime, it must never exceed the number of hours authorised by law in the country concerned. So, according to Bangladeshi legislation, a total of 60 hours per week is the maximum allowed. Or, during certain exceptional periods, 72 hours. But never more than that. So, how many hours do the electronic time clocks really record at AKH, the model supplier of H&M? The only way to find out is to wait for nightfall. 8 p.m. the inhabitants of Dhaka return to their homes in their thousands. But not all of them. We are with Sultana, the trade unionist, on the way to meet some of her informants, according to whom AKH is compelling workers to work illegal overtime. Just before 10 p.m, we go past the entrance to the factory. The first workers have just left their seats and they start to leave in waves. Sultana asks us to park 600 meters further away for safety reasons. Finally, two workers join us. We must protect their identities, as talking to journalists could cost them their livelihoods.
Hello.
How are you?
How are you? Fine, and you?
I'm fine.
On his mobile phone, one of them shows us photos of clothes on which they are working at the moment.
This is the picture he took today.
Just
These are T-shirts, a big order for H&M.
এই মুহূর্তে আমি লাঞ্চ করছি দুপুরে 1টায় সেক্ষেত্রে এখন বাজে 11টা বেজে আছে এখন আমার পেটে খিদা আছে বাবার ঘুম প্রয়োজন
8 a.m, 10 p.m, 6 days a week, sometimes 7 according to these workers. A minimum of 80 hours a week, far more than H&M's promises. And to meet the order timescales imposed by the Swedish giant, sometimes these workers have to push themselves even harder.
10টা পর্যন্ত ডিউটি হচ্ছে নরমালি আমাদের 10টায় প্রতিদিন হয় পরে আমাদের দেখা গেছে যখন নাইট হয় তখন 1টা পর্যন্ত আর যখন এত বেশি শিফটের কারণে তখন আমাদের সকাল 5টা বা সকাল 7টা পর্যন্ত ডিউটি করা লাগে তাও কোনো খাবার ছাড়া আমাদের টিফিন ছাড়া আমাদের ডিউটি করা লাগে 3টা 4টা এবং রাত 1টা পর্যন্ত এর মধ্যে 10টা পর্যন্ত ডিউটি করলে আমাদেরকে একটা কলা দেওয়া হয় আর একটা রুটি দেওয়া হয় এছাড়া আর কিছু না
যেগুলো ভোর 5টা তৈরি করে আবার পরদিন 8টা বাজে আসতে হয় সকালে সেক্ষেত্রে মনে করেন আমাদের চোখ জ্বালাপোড়া করে পেটে খিদা থাকে এগুলো আমাদের অনেক প্রবলেম হয়
Do they have a choice for all these overtime hours?
জোর করে আমাদের ডিউটি রাখে যদি পলায় চলে যায় আমার যে ডিউটি আছে তা তো ডিউটি না করে সেক্ষেত্রে পরবর্তী দিন গেলে আমাদের অনেক টর্চারিং করা হয় দেখা গেল কাজ না দিয়ে আমাদের দাঁড় করে রাখা হচ্ছে আমরা
We would have liked to ask them more questions, but they explain that when you work such long hours, every minute of sleep is precious. While we accompany them to the shanty town where they live, they confide to us the dramatic repercussions that this forced labour has for their family life.
সকালবেলা ঘুমে দেখি আসি আমি বাসা যখন যাই তখন ঘুমে দেখি আমার বাচ্চারা সময় দিতে পারতেছে না
শুক্রবারে যে একটু টাকা পাওয়ার পর কেনাকাটা করবো সেই সময়টা আমাদের পাওয়া খুব কষ্ট
These serious breaches of their ethical promises are without doubt what will finally allow us to force H&M's door open. After having repeatedly refused all our filming requests, the multinational makes a last-minute U-turn when faced with the magnitude of our discoveries. A meeting is set up 6,700 kilometres away from Dhaka for the interview we didn't think we would get. We are in Stockholm, the homeland of the Swedish giant. In the city centre, the famous red signs are everywhere you look. Finally, we find ourselves in front of the Holy Grail, the parent company of H&M. But we won't get to see much of anything, just the inside of the tiny room where the interview will take place.
Hey, come in. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon. Marie. Nice to meet you.
This pretty blonde lady is the person who will answer our questions. Don't let her student-like demeanour put you off. Helena Helmerson is the worldwide director of sustainability, the Miss Clean of H&M. The labour conditions of the workers fall under her responsibility.
When it comes to overtime hours, that is a challenge for the whole industry.
I know.
And that is a challenge also for H&M. So we do a lot of things to you know, try to hamper that trend. And that is, of course, to improve our own planning with our suppliers, factories, but also to do a lot of training when it comes to productivity.
Yeah,
and these
but
kind of
it's, again, this is until 3 a.m., 5 a.m., 7 a.m., and the worker clearly told us that it was the date of shipments which were responsible for their overtime. And isn't it a problem inherent to H&M business model?
So we have very close partnerships with our suppliers, and most of them we have worked with for a very long time. So we have a very structured way of planning and buying. And of course, we need that dialogue with suppliers to plan the capacity in the right way, and to overcome that big industry challenge of overtime hours.
It is obviously not easy to reconcile ethical promises with the realities of production. But we're going to make even more serious discoveries. A threat that this time hangs directly over the lives of the Bangladeshi workers. The safety of the buildings that they spend their days in. Since the beginning of the 1980s in Dhaka, these factories have sprung up everywhere, in the tiniest spaces available. Crammed in next to each other and on top of each other, sometimes in blatant defiance of safety regulations. One event brutally shook the world's collective conscience. It happened last year in the suburbs of Dhaka. On the 24th of April 2013 at 8 o'clock in the morning, 3,600 workers went into this textile complex. 1 hour later, Rana Plaza collapsed on top of them. These are the first images of the disaster, filmed by a local on his mobile phone. For 1 month, first aid workers and anonymous volunteers searched tirelessly amongst the factory rubble to pull out survivors. Until all that remained were bodies, in their hundreds. 1,135 to be precise. It was the worst industrial disaster in Bangladesh's history. Around 30 Western brands were involved, but up until this day, there hasn't been any irrefutable proof as to the presence of H&M. The Rana Plaza tragedy exposed all of the faults of the local textile industry. The investigation revealed that the building was constructed, then extended upwards without any permits or respect of regulations. Even more serious, it was partially built on unstable ground. A pond. In this image from 2010, you can clearly make it out to the side of the building, this big green spot.
Al menos 76 personas han muerto y varios cientos han resultado heridas.
The Rana Plaza disaster shocked the entire
Now they're
world.
under serious pressure to guarantee that workers
Du
aren't
Bangladesh, un accord vient d'être signé avec plusieurs marques occidentales pour améliorer la sécurité.
As a direct result of this, 150 Western brands, including H&M, committed to this common charter to improve the safety of their Bangladeshi factories. It was christened the Accord Coalition. However, we are going to bring to light potentially dramatic problems at one of the Swedish giant's suppliers. Our whistleblower is the young director of the local NGO. Her pseudonym is Tanya.
How are you? Good morning.
Tanya prefers to remain anonymous, as her activism has in the past led to her being threatened.
Even if it's only in Europe, still there is a risk, because the retailers will see us. The retailers will email it to their suppliers. We will be seen. It's not too hard to find people in a globally connected world.
Tanya takes us to the suburbs of Dhaka. We go past an immense complex to our right. Welcome to the empire of Shinest Group, another approved supplier of H&M, which can also be found in their official list. On paper, the factory is perfectly safe. That is the conclusion of this confidential document dated March 2014. It is an audit report commissioned by the Shinest Group to certify its factory as safe. It states that the building was designed by a specialist, an architect whose name is written here, Mr. Akhtar Rutzaman, professional registration number CA003. With supporting thumbnails of photographs, the report indicates that the building was approved by the local authority in charge of construction permits, the Rajuk. It is the type of certification required by H&M in order to work with suppliers. However, it is this accredited factory itself which could pose a safety problem. Viewed from above, we discover a pond just to the side, as was the case with Rana Plaza. At the start of the millennium, before the factory was built, this is what the ground looked like, a swampy area. It is here that Shinest built its factory and then extended it over the years. We go closer to inspect the surroundings. There are guards patrolling the area, so we must remain discreet. And here is the pond that we can see from the satellite images. The buildings virtually have their toes in the water. A quick search on the banks confirms that H&M products have indeed been manufactured here.
Oh, there are some labels. H&M.
Yeah.
H&M everywhere. Just dropping them out of the window.
Yep.
A few meters away, the back of Shinest looks directly onto a school playground. It is strewn with waste that has been dumped by the factory, and suspicious-looking liquids spill towards it from the building. We have no time to investigate further, as security has spotted us.
Okay.
Tiens, regarde, il y a un problème là. Faut qu'on se casse.
This man is phoning his managers. We try to negotiate with him, but our guide Tanya signals at us not to push any further. In any case, she wants to show us another problem, one that is even more alarming. Not long ago, Shinest added 2 extra stories to the factory, bringing the total number of floors up to 8. And what worries Tanya is the state of the lower walls, which are the oldest ones.
We can see just below the third window from the top, on the left-hand side above the pipes. If you zoom it up, then you can see the cracks. And right under the windows, all the windows on the third line from the top. And there are similar cracks, even larger ones, that have been masked and cemented with plaster on the upper 2 floors. And this is what we hear from the locals. The locals will say for themselves.
What's more, we notice other cracks which have been filled in but are still very visible. Some of them even spread several meters across.
The workers, that's what they say, that we're afraid that the same thing will happen, what happened with Rana Plaza.
In one of the district shanty towns, 2 of these worried workers have agreed to talk to us. 2 women. Obviously, they have their faces covered, again for their safety.
যে জায়গায় উঠেছে 6 তলা, প্রথম উঠেছিল 5 তলা, 5 তলা থেকে 6 তলা, 6 তলা থেকে 9 তলা। কি গ্যারান্টি আছে? ফাউন্ডেশন দেখা যাচ্ছে 6 তলা পর্যন্ত করছে, 9 তলা পর্যন্ত উঠাইছে। আমি খেতে পারি 1 কেজি, আমাকে যদি দেয় 2 কেজি, আমি কি খেতে পারবো? আমি কি সেটা আমার পেটে কুলাবে? তাহলে কিভাবে ওই গার্মেন্টসটা ধরে রাখতে পারবে? নিচের দিকে ডেম্পে গেছে, কিন্তু তারা আরো উপরে উঠাইতেছে।
But how does she feel that?
মানে আমরা তো এলাকা থেকে থাকতাছি, চোখের একটা আন্দাজ আছে, বুঝতে পারি যে জিনিসটা কি হয়েছে, বা ফাটনও ধরা আছে। ওনারা রং করে আবার ফাটন আটকে দিচ্ছে। হ্যাঁ, তো আমরা যে কেউ বাইর করে দিচ্ছি। আপনার ভয় লাগে না? ঝুঁকি না? একবার যদি কিছু হয় তাহলে ভক্ত হয়ে মুখ ফিরে নিচ্ছে।
Frightened workers, walls that are cracking, swampland. It's got to be said, the problems are lining up for this official supplier of H&M clothes. We're going to ask for an explanation from the authorities concerned. at the headquarters of the public administration that approved the construction Shinist's factory, the Rajuk. We go to the Development Monitoring Service, who would have issued the permit and inspected the building's structure.
Okay, thank you for coming, Rajuk.
Thank you for
my name is
letting
Mr.
us
Ghulam
in.
Mustafa, working as the director of Rajuk.
In all honesty, at that moment, we believed in the good faith of Mr. Mustafa. Well, up until our first question.
When can we know if these factories have taken the permission for these extra floors? How soon can we know?
And if they have been inspected.
And if they have been inspected.
They can contact with the authorities concerned
But
for
you-
information.
You're not the authority in charge?
Now you can contact if you feel the garments, owner of the garments.
Oh yes, but we want to also have the...
Yes, but they can say anything to us. But that's why we come
We want to
to.
have the voice of the public administration.
Because you're the sole responsible.
Yeah, you're the one in charge, so I mean you're the most legitimate people to give the information, I believe.
Yes.
Well, once Mr. Mustafa has disappeared under his pile of dossiers, we realise that we are never going to get the information that we want. So, to find out if the building is safe, there is only one more avenue for us to explore from the factory's certification report. The architect was called Mr. Akhtar Rutzaman, and his professional registration number, CA003, is provided. We try to contact him. A problem. This name doesn't exist in the professional directory of the Institute of Bangladesh Architects. His identification number, CA003, leads us to someone else, a Mr. Nobir Ahmed, who we find far away from Dhaka, in Los Angeles. A very astonished Nobir Ahmed replies to us via Facebook that yes, he was an architect in Bangladesh, but he left the country 16 years ago and has never worked on this Shinist factory. He also adds the following: I'm afraid there is some fabrication in the approval process. However, from my initial practicing years, I know very well that money can manipulate any document in our country. This audit obviously contains false information. We contact the office who carried it out, who point us in the direction of Shinest, who in turn refuse to give us any information whatsoever. In Stockholm, on the day that we meet with H&M's Director of Sustainability, she was already aware of some of our discoveries, the ones we had previously informed her communications service about. However, she refused to look at the erroneous audit report. She is not interested either in the pictures of cracks, workers' testimonies, or even the swampy ground on which the factory is built. Her responses have all been prepared in advance.
And films afterwards.
But you need to see that to understand the question.
Yeah, what was the question, sorry?
The question is, we might face fraudulent practices here.
Right, so when it comes to this particular unit, we have started phase-out dialogue with them, and that is due to inadequate environmental licenses on this particular unit. However, when it comes to the building safety of this unit, according to our knowledge and our audits, we haven't found any reason to doubt that they are not following the requirements when it comes to commercial building approval and also shared buildings.
But have you
so, of course, we take your finding very, very seriously, and that we will bring forward to the Accord, which is the coalition of big brands and NGOs and also unions working to drive these kind of improvements.
In the meantime, can you guarantee the workers that the factory is safe?
So all the suppliers' factories in Bangladesh will be inspected by professional engineers during the end of 2014.
And so the workers of H&M in Bangladesh will have to wait until the end of 2014 to be sure that they are not in any danger. Just one more thing to fan the flames of the revolt that has been building in them over the past few years. The bad working conditions, the low wages, these workers who have been submissive up until now are finally daring to protest. In response, the authorities oppressed their dissent with violence. In September 2012, the situation was so tense that the CEO of H&M had to visit Dhaka in person to calm things down.
To take responsibility is a very important part in the total customer offering for us. When it comes to the workers' wages, our standpoint is clear, and that is that we support the workers' demand for higher wages.
In an interview that was carefully manipulated for the media, Karl-Johan Persson called upon the Prime Minister of Bangladesh to raise the legal minimum wage. In reality, at this very moment, as he was posing as defender of workers' rights for an official photo in the utmost secrecy, 6,000 kilometres away, his teams were in the process of finalising Plan B. To relocate a part of the production to Africa, specifically to Ethiopia, where the workforce is even cheaper than in Bangladesh. We have all forgotten this country somewhat since the 1980s, since its inhabitants were seen dying live on our screens due to terrible famines. There were a total of 1 million victims. And who can really remember the tyrant Mengistu and the Marxist junta who were in power at the time? The dictatorship fell in Ethiopia, but an authoritarian regime survived it. It is our next destination. Here, one sole political party has reigned unchallenged for 23 years. In our suitcase, a report from the American Secretary of State on the country's current situation. It is 28 pages about human rights violations in all its forms. This paragraph alone contains extrajudicial executions, torture, arbitrary arrests, large-scale corruption. The list goes on and on. This is Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia, from 2,400 meters. Any filming here is a bit like making a documentary on H&M. It's very complicated. We carry a letter of official accreditation with us, but it drastically restricts our freedom of movement.
Sorry, no problem. Yes?
Excuse me, madam.
Yes, sure.
They want to see the camera.
So we have to be discreet in our filming. Here, security guards patrol every street corner of the city. Even more worryingly, in our hotel's minibus, we find a list of every guest, nationality, passport number, and reason for visit, which is addressed directly for the attention of the police. This is the repressive state that H&M has chosen for its new commercial El Dorado. The Swedish giant has even discreetly established an office in the centre of Addis Ababa. Its address is not known, but we want to meet those in charge of it to have more details on the reasons why they have set up in Ethiopia. And after a lot of searching, we finally knock at the right door.
Hello, my name is Marie Morris.
There is no logo on the wall, but we are definitely in H&M.
Unfortunately, I cannot give you 5 minutes. Okay. First of all, thank you for your visit. It's very kind of you. But we cannot give any speech. We cannot answer any question. You cannot get the business-related, confidential information. Thank you. Thank you for your visit. Oh, you are
Have a nice evening. Bye.
Bye.
Could H&M be a bit uneasy about announcing their presence in Ethiopia? We will have more luck with their correspondent at the heart of the government. A meeting with the director of the Institute for the Development of the Textile Industry.
So you start already, yeah?
Yeah, you know.
This civil servant knows H&M's people very well.
We are working as a team.
Yeah.
And we are in touch in each day.
Yeah.
There is one argument that stands out as having swayed the Swedish giant's decision to set up in Ethiopia.
The cost of the wage, it is one of the least on the globe. It is very, very competitive labor wage that we have.
What is the legal minimum wage here in Ethiopia?
No, actually, in the private sector there is no minimum wage.
Okay.
In the civil servant there is a minimum wage.
Okay.
That is the bombshell. There is no legal minimum wage here for the textile workers. According to our information, the Ethiopian H&M factory workers will only earn between 36 and 50 euros per month. Much cheaper than the brand's standard Asian playing field. But we found that in the frantic quest for the best price, it is not just the fate of the workers that poses the problem, but the bosses themselves. In Ethiopia, H&M has selected two main suppliers. The first, Almeida Textile, belongs to an organisation that is directly affiliated to the authoritarian party in power. The other is located in the north of the country. H&M established itself with MAA Garment at the end of 2012. It is not possible to visit the factory, but we have been able to get hold of their corporate film. Before approving this ultra-modern building and giving work to 1,500 employees, H&M took the trouble to inspect it down to every last detail.
Thank you.
Its director, who we met in Addis Ababa, was put to a tough test by the Swedish giant.
They have to audit the factory, the environmental friendly, the management, everything they have to audit. It's after almost 1 year that we started the business.
However, H&M has very obviously overlooked one small detail, the most important. Up there, on the bookcase, the owner of MAA Garments factory, Sheikh Mohammed Al-Amoudi. You will most likely not have heard of him. Here he is in 2011, being honoured on Ethiopian state television.
A man who is never tired of expressing his love to his country. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sheikh Mohammed Hussein Ali Al-Amoudi.
Al-Amoudi is the 61st wealthiest man in the world. The prodigal son of Ethiopia, he has built an immense commercial empire with the help of his friends in the ruling party. Textiles, construction and public works, banks, mines, agriculture, you name it. In the last 20 years, the businessman has helped himself to all of the most profitable companies in Ethiopia. But at what price? Behind his gentlemanly smile, this approved partner of H&M leaves a trail of damning records in his wake, of which one in particular stands out. The expropriation of entire villages. A few years ago, the Ethiopian state allocated Al-Amoudi 10,000 hectares in the east of the country so that he could farm rice on an industrial scale. Since 2011, several associations have been publicly denouncing the forced expulsions of villages located on Al-Amoudi's land. According to the NGO Human Rights Watch, these have been accompanied by large-scale human rights violations. The Oakland Institute talks of major environmental damage, where sections of forest have been entirely razed to the ground to make way for rice production. We had planned to go to this region in the west, the Gambela, to meet the displaced villagers.
Beyond the mountains in the far west of Ethiopia is one of the country's lesser-known treasures.
But unfortunately, all you will see of Gambela are these promotional images of the national park, because 1 hour before takeoff, the Ethiopian embassy in Paris formally forbids us from going there.
But regarding the Gambela, it isn't mentioned anything. So without any reason or without any purpose or any objective, how can I just adopt it to Brazil? Because it isn't mention anything about Gambela or to do there.
Yes, it's written in the synopsis I've given at the embassy on the 11th of February.
It doesn't convince me just to allow you to go there because for whom you are going to speak or interview, or specifically which area are you going to shoot the documentary?
And is that a problem?
Yes.
I'm beginning to think that maybe you don't want us to go to Gambela anyway.
Sorry. The problem is not mine. This is clear. The problem is yours.
We have been confined to the capital Addis Ababa, but we managed to find people from Gambela who are ready to speak out about what happened. 2 days later, one of them is in our hotel room. He is the spokesperson for the evicted villages, a Gambela native whose identity we must protect, because the accusations that he will bring on Al-Amoudi could cost him his life.
He's not a trustworthy person. He's a man who did not keep his promise. He's a man who is playing with the life of the people. He's destroying and killing. What Al-Amoudi destroyed is a lot of things. It is a woodland area with savanna grass, where many wildlife is used to stay. Not only wildlife, forest is our life, our food, our medicine. These people said we will not leave this place. They were telling me 20 times to convince them with soldiers to make them fear.
In one village, the inhabitants refused to give in to the threats of Al-Amoudi's men. The consequences of this happened in broad daylight.
The military went from side to side here, and they found people sitting down here. At daylight, they killed 5 people. And one teacher died, one student died, 3 militia died, were killed. And these people, when came back to Saudi Star, that's it, to make people quiet, nobody to talk. These are the cases.
But is there an investigation on those killings linked to Saudi Star?
Who will do that? Who will do the investigation? The investigation cannot be done by anybody in this country.
However, there was an investigation, the one that H&M conducted on Sheikh Al-Amoudi's factory before giving the green light to the partnership. They must have skipped over the section on human rights. Oh, and one last little piece of information on the Sheikh. Can you guess in which European country he built part of his immense fortune? In Sweden, H&M's kingdom. Something that is definitely worth asking the multinationals Miss Clean about.
According to Human Rights Watch, as you may know,
yes, of course,
one of the biggest NGOs in the world, they have raised some very serious concern about land grabbing, human rights violation linked to one of Al-Amoudi business in the west of the country. Do you think Sheikh Mohammed Al-Amoudi is a sustainable partner to work with for a company like H&M?
Again, working in Ethiopia with different risks, I think will be good also for the country because we enter with such strict requirements. And we have so many different initiatives that can really raise the bar
but you're not understanding.
In that industry. When it comes to this particular person, we thank you very much for your information to look even more into that. But when it comes to the business relationship with that supplier, that is really the ones that we have a business relationship with. And when we have been auditing the supplier, we haven't found anything saying that they cannot live up to our standard.
So the world standard, according to H&M, is just that, a compliant factory surrounded by 4 walls. But they never look any further than those walls. Before closing our investigation, we are going to reveal another little-known aspect of H&M's world. A made-to-measure mechanism to earn even more money and send the maximum amount back home, to Sweden. It starts right at the factory. Take Bangladesh, for example, the Gulshan district. It is here, in this chic neighbourhood, that the local subsidiary of H&M has established itself. Right here. Don't look for a sign. In Bangladesh, the company is registered under another name, Pulse Trading Far East Limited. 250 staff work here full-time to manage the garment orders of H&M. Estimated annual transactions, more than €1 billion. And here is the catch. Pulse Trading Far East Limited doesn't pay any corporation tax in Bangladesh. As a Swedish NGO claimed in its 2010 report entitled Made in Bangladesh, How H&M Make Off with All the Loot. No tax, so no money at all for the state of Bangladesh and its citizens, which is not at all the promise that was made by H&M's CEO.
We want to contribute to improvements for the people working in the clothing industry in Bangladesh, and that's why since many years back we have invested a lot of resources to improve the Bangladeshi textile industry.
I'm looking for Pulse Trading Far East Limited. Yes. Okay. This way?
First door?
Okay.
We're going to try and get an explanation from the management of Pulse Trading.
Hello, sir.
Hi. Hi, my name is Marie Maurice.
Yes.
I'm a French journalist.
Yes.
And I'd like to see David Savman or one person in charge, if possible.
Apparently, it is possible. 20 minutes later, they send us one of the directors themselves of Pulse Trading. We will call him Mr. Pixel. This Westerner doesn't allow us to give his name or show his face.
Okay, so you are confirming that Pulse Trading Far East Limited is not paying any income tax in Bangladesh or not? Are you paying
What access to do? What is that question for?
I just need a confirmation. I have to give you the information.
For what do you need a confirmation?
I mean, you're placing more than $1 billion of order in Bangladesh through this office. And you have no income, nothing. There is no money circulating.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
We push some more. Maybe a little too much.
I would be happy if you put that thing down.
No English. Portuguese or French?
Take it down.
J'arrête.
Take it down and switch it off.
After 10 minutes, we are politely escorted off the premises. Pulse Trading refuses to answer our questions, but we have one more trick up our sleeve. An interview inside this building, which is the Bangladesh National Board of Revenue. A local contact has arranged an interview for us with a source. A tax official. We film discreetly. This civil servant will explain to us why H&M, one of Bangladesh's biggest commercial partners, doesn't pay any tax at all in this country.
Pulse Trading, কিন্তু এইখানে একটা ওরা যেটা লিয়াজ অফিস করে সেটা দিয়ে ওরা আপনার ওই কোম্পানিটা কাজগুলি লুক আফটার করায় আর কিছু না বিষয়টা হচ্ছে এরকম
But why aren't they paying any income tax? Can you ask him?
Yeah. মানে তারা কেন ইনকাম ট্যাক্স দেয় না এটা বলতে চাচ্ছে আর কি সে
তারা তো এখানে কোনো বিজনেস করতেছে না সরাসরি
So they're just putting orders to the liaison office.
Okay.
And liaison office are not paying income tax because of they're not earning, right? You're clear?
Let us try and explain in a bit more detail. H&M Bangladesh, Pulse Trading Far East Limited, is a subsidiary that in fact has two roles. One, it audits the factories. Two, it passes, tracks and checks the garment orders. But it isn't the one that pays the factories once the clothing has been shipped. The company that is in charge of that is very far away, in Sweden. H&M GBC. It is this company that signs the check and sends it to the suppliers in Bangladesh. And then it is this company that resells the clothes from Bangladesh to the stores around the world. And And so it is this company that collects the revenue, pays the taxes and recovers the profits. The company in Sweden. This is how they do it legally. Pools Trading Far East Limited, H&M Bangladesh, doesn't trade or make money. Zero profit equals zero tax. A cunning but entirely legal system and a standard tactic of big multinationals. Trading without redistributing any of the profits? Not very ethical. At any rate for this senior official of the Bangladeshi tax authorities.
Someone told me H&M is the biggest buyer of clothes in Bangladesh. As a man with your job, is it upsetting you to know that they are paying zero tax?
Yes, I myself I observe this one. Office, they should have to pay the tax in Bangladesh because they are doing the business in Bangladesh as a liaison office. Even though they are doing the business in the liaison office.
The message is clear, and of course we will relay it back to Stockholm. This time our contact person is the global tax manager for H&M. He therefore is in charge of the system that angered the Bangladeshi tax official.
I know that H&M is not breaching any rule in Bangladesh.
I'm not saying that.
Nor I don't know this gentleman. I don't know where the video fragment is coming from.
It's coming from the National Board of Revenues.
And if they have a problem with it, there are official ways for them to go and to oppose against this. And with all respect, as I'm the global tax manager, I've never ever received any letter from this board, nor any other instructions from an international organization about paying taxes in the sourcing market.
Okay, so what you're telling me is that, in fact, H&M has never paid any income tax for the last 28 years in Bangladesh?
Not only in Bangladesh, but in all the countries where we have a sourcing market and where we have a representative office, there is no base for income tax as there is no commercial transaction.
The secret of H&M's financial system is as simple as that. The noll strategy, which means zero in Swedish. Or how to manufacture 99% of its garments outside of Sweden without even redistributing a tiny drop of the profit to the producing countries. The multinational has even organised it so that they pay less tax in the countries where they do make money. That is in the 53 countries where its stores are located. All around Europe, for example. In France, there is an H&M in every shopping centre. A few years ago, the sales from the H&M stores were worth a whopping 30 million euros in corporate tax to the French state. Until one day in 2007, when H&M decided that 30 million was just too much. And to pay less tax, there was just one solution. The stores needed to have less revenue. In 2007, the multinational adopted a new working strategy, detailed in this internal and highly confidential document that we have managed to obtain. So that the CSO, that is to say the stores, had less revenue, H&M would simply shift part of its revenue to the Swedish head office, to H&M GBC. From now on, the stores would pay a whole range of benefits to GBC. For the production, the logistics, for designing the collections, marketing and communications. To really understand this concept, let's imagine an H&M t-shirt sold for 10 euros in a French store. Before 2007, here is roughly what happened. The store spent 4 euros on buying the t-shirt. Consequently, it pocketed the remaining 6 euros, its taxable profit. So it was on this amount that it paid tax. Since 2007, the store no longer buys the t-shirt for 4 euros, but for 5 euros, which is for the shirt, but also for the t-shirt design, its delivery, advertising it. which gives a total of about €8 spent. As a result, the store only shows a very small profit of €2, and so pays less tax. And the result? Today in France, H&M's tax bill is now a quarter of what it was, while its turnover has almost doubled, which means that the French state has lost out on €180 million in revenue since 2007. One last sleight of hand to finish. H&M has even managed to get us, the European taxpayers, to finance its own infrastructures. To understand all this, we need to go to Belgium. We're heading to the Hainaut province in Wallonia. Here is the warehouse that we've helped to finance. It's massive.
Là, tout le terrain autour, c'est à vous?
Tout est à nous ici, oui. Et on a 110 000 mètres carrés qui nous appartiennent encore ici et ici tout autour.
Pour de futurs agrandissements?
Oui.
D'accord.
To build this warehouse, H&M has squirreled away €6 million from the European Union via a fund reserved as a priority for small and medium businesses. To that, we can add €10 million offered by Belgium. A nice windfall for the Swedish giant. In total, a quarter of its budget for the works. In Poland, it is the same story. They got Europe to sign a big, fat cheque. Another warehouse, another gift. This time, 34 million zloty. More than €8 million. Even more embarrassing. The construction of these two warehouses, in part thanks to these public subsidies, has brought about job losses in France. The job losses were felt here, in H&M's Bourget warehouse in Seine-Saint-Denis. At the end of the working day, there aren't many employees coming out. And the cause? H&M has dismissed 100 of them, 1/3 of the workforce, since it opened its European subsidised warehouse in Belgium. We have a meeting with the union representative of the site, and she is not happy at all.
Il y a de la place pour tout le monde et c'est bien que tout le monde puisse travailler. Mais alors d'un côté, on crée de l'emploi, puis de l'autre côté, on en détruit. Alors je ne vois pas où est l'intérêt.
H&M dit qu'elle est une entreprise extrêmement responsable vis-à-vis de ses salariés. Est-ce que vous, c'est quelque chose qui vous semble correct?
Non, moi j'y crois pas, Ça reste des financiers qui veulent amasser de plus en plus.
So, there is no such thing as the happy globalization that H&M are trying to sell us. In fact, it is just an attractive shop window meant to inspire the consumer to fill up the multinationals' coffers. Dubious financial mechanisms, worker exploitation, links to human rights abusers. How many other moral lines will be crossed tomorrow in the world of the Swedish giant? What price are we really prepared to pay for the item of cheap clothing that we'll buy from one of their stores next weekend?